My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit, as I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Back Pocket Podcast, the only podcast that is going to reveal the one and only truth, that the AFL is corrupt and there is only one man who can solve it. Come on down, Brendan Gale. You must take it back from these corrupt nuffies who are ruining the game of AFL. My name's Alistair. I'm joined by Jack. How you doing?
I'm good. It has been a good week for weird Richmond fans on the internet. The score review just reminded them of last season too much. They got a bit up about that. Dimmer's gone to a new club.
It's like seeing your ex with a new person. You're like,
at the same time, they're trying to be really excited that Geelong's missed finals along with them. Like they're having a weird one. Like they're good though. It's entertaining.
It's a real midlife crisis moment for them.
Bulldogs fans are very happy. Just a week after Bevo got his contract renewed by 2 years.
I thought it got renewed at the start of the season.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I think so.
Either way, crazy. We'll definitely be talking about
Essendon
that at some
are very
point.
happy that the Bulldogs lost because otherwise all the focus would be on them.
Yeah, there was a few teams in a row that just had the focus taken off of them by something else outrageous happening. Obviously, the Adelaide score reviews just clouded most of it, and then we wake up today and
What
Dimmer's
score
coach.
review?
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. Anyway, I guess I'll jump into the votes. My one this week was to Jeremy McGovern.
Okay, Jeremy McGovern's my 3.
He's a 3.
So it means you've got numbers for him because I didn't do stats this week.
Good start. I do have some numbers for him. So Jeremy McGovern, back to traditional Jeremy McGovern kind of footy. He had 4 spoils and won both his contested defensive one-on-ones, but also had 6 defensive half pressure acts, 9 marks, 5 intercepts. He had 22 disposals at 91, and a couple of the missed targets were by handball, so his disposal by foot was even better than that. 4 rebounds, 9 intercepted possessions, and 393 metres gained. Really good. That Eagles backline functioned properly for the first time I've seen it function in ages.
And they're still missing people.
Yeah.
I was watching the game with my Eagles supporting cousin who was just saying it was nice to see some of the senior heads actually getting to play well together. And it was headlined by Yo in the middle. Yep. It was headlined by Cripps up forward, and it was McGovern down back.
That Cripps goal was superb.
He is a little gun, and he has been for quite some time. Yep. Definitely underrated overall, Cripps, but I thought McGovern was really good, and I can, not that I'm saying they're going to win 10 games next year or anything, but they'll be much better with Barras and McGovern there the whole season.
Yep.
Makes a huge difference.
It has, and outside of the Freo game, I feel like the Freo game really sucks because their last few weeks had been better.
Yeah, 1 point loss.
They were competitive against Richmond, then they had the really close loss to Essendon, then beat North, and then if you take out the Freo game, then they've won against the Bulldogs. It's been a good month. But it's overshadowed by the massive derby, which is something Freo.
It's the worst place they could lose by 100 points, right?
Absolutely. Had it been to the Bulldogs or Richmond, it would have been more forgivable.
No one would have blinked an eye. So,
who was your one then?
My one was to old friend of the podcast, Sam Collins.
Sam Collins didn't quite get there for me, but he spoiled like a king.
I thought he was super important in that game. He basically held Mackay goalless until he was forced to swap onto Curnow, and Curnow only kicked 1 from there, and he got completely loose. Obviously, Curnow had a great game, saved the game down back.
He was incredible.
His field kicking was insane, but whenever Sam Collins was actually on him, nullified.
Yeah.
So it has to be worth a vote.
I brought the stats up for you.
I don't care about stats.
14 disposals at 86%.
We know Sam Collins. You don't need to bring up the stats.
Not a disposal man, but 11 of those 14 were intercepts, which is crazy. And then the spoils, which is the one I saw when I was actually looking for him earlier.
37 spoils.
Only had 9. So I thought it was more than that.
Close.
2 rebounds, 9 spoils. Good Sam
good.
Collins game. Mm-hmm. I liked that, the matchup that was so key earlier in the game with Curnow kicking those goals on Ballard, who was good outside of that. It was just much like last week when Carrick kicked those goals against Collingwood. You can't do much when one of those players are on. But Ballard moving into basically the midfield wing position and Curnow down back when that game was on the line was wild to see about how much faith is in both those players.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Collins, vote king last year, been stolen a bit by Ballard this year. So.
And Powell.
Yeah, and Powell.
All right, well, my 2 this week was to Nick Blakey.
I really wanted to give Nick Blakey votes, but I didn't.
He was really good.
Yeah.
That game was nuts.
Watching that was heart-wrenching. I couldn't believe it.
It's really funny how my mood changed from, Geelong season's over, to what have I just seen? I couldn't believe it. I obviously didn't see it quite as well live because I was not in front of a TV at home, so I didn't quite understand the enormity of the incident.
It was a moment...
Until I saw the replays later.
Like, watching them celebrate in the crowd and the commentators are calling the play, and we're not seeing it because we're just seeing Ben Keys celebrate. I couldn't imagine being Ben Keys this week. I'd be thinking about that for the rest of my life. I think about saying you too to someone who said enjoy your meal. Imagine Ben Keys. But yeah, Nick, the Lizard.
Nick Blakey was
the
really
Lizard's
good.
really good.
He had 12 spoils, 8 pressure acts and 2 tackles, 21 disposals, 9 of those were intercepts, 6 of them were rebounds. He had 2 marks, both intercepts, and 450 metres gained, a lot of those on the run. Big reason why they were able to hold Adelaide off. Adelaide's second half was huge. They, I think it was how much was expected them to play
The
all
whole
game
game.
at home.
Yeah.
But they really
It was
forced
really
them back
just
into
the
that.
last quarter. A couple of miracle moments, but the Lizard, I want to give credit. I don't know if I've brought this up about him, but his ability to get the ball at D50 and then literally within 2 seconds he is at the forward 50 is insane. It feels like magic. It feels like he shouldn't be able to do that, to just be able to waltz that far that quickly, but he does, and he's a good one, the Lizard.
He is very good. And Sydney is in some really good form heading into September. So that's really good to see.
Locked in, right?
For them, yeah, they're locked in. Everyone,
Yeah.
but thanks to that game's result, it would still be open if Adelaide had won that.
GWS, Adelaide and Essendon who can still make it.
Essendon can't make it. Well, they can if they win by 500.
They have to win by 500, but they could make it.
Technically, yes. You sound like those Richmond fans 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Why is the model writing Richmond off? They technically have...
It's,
Anyway.
it's mathematically possible. Even if it's a 0.01%,
You're
that's
right.
still 0.01.
So yeah, really the biggest games are Geelong Carlton... the Geelong Carlton games. Geelong Bulldogs and Carlton GWS. They're
Yeah.
the games that decide the 8, basically. Who was your 2?
My 2 was Jacob Wiedering.
He was a special mention
Yeah.
for me. I fluctuated having him in there and out all week, but...
Yeah, his marking was incredible, especially when the game was under siege and that first quarter where no Carlton defender could get near it, he was the only one.
I think the last quarter was when he impressed me the most in that game, when Gold Coast really turned it back on again.
Yeah.
Storming, and he was just doing as much as a man could possibly do until they sent Kerno back to help him out.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. He's had a great second half of the year.
Yep.
Been a big part of why Carlton's been able to hit the form they have. Love him. Don't have his stats because he was a special mention for me, but
No stats here.
Wiedering's stats good.
Yeah, just take it. Take our word for it.
And your
My
3 was Jeremy McGovern.
Jeremy McGovern.
My 3 was Tom Stewart, who I thought was the only reason Geelong were in that game for the first half, basically. He had 30 disposals, 10 rebounds, 8 intercepts, 13 marks, 4 of those were intercepts. He had 3 score involvements and 2 score launches.
That's pretty good stats. Maybe I should have listened to the stats this week.
600 metres gained. He was really good. I think that for most of that game, he was the only reliable Geelong player. Dangerfield is obviously still got crunched guts, basically, and Cameron we saw was out of the game, but Stewart was brilliant. I thought Guthrie was reasonable support to him, but there's only so much you can do when St Kilda go inside 50 that many times.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the game and I was hoping it would turn around because I really didn't want St Kilda to win, but it really felt like St Kilda were on top.
They
from
should have been
minute
10
one.
goals up at half
Yeah.
time. Jack Henry was so sorely missing. I think it was really
I was gonna say,
blatantly
he didn't
obvious
play, but no. Yeah.
this week, especially after Radicalea went down. But even before that, he's so important to the structure back there, and I think De Koning is a bit lost without him because he's so used to playing as that. Plays on the third tall.
I don't think he can play on the best key.
No, I
and
agree.
That's going to be a problem unless Jack Henry's fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Radicalea is not the option either.
No, and well, it's almost a done deal that he'll be at Hawthorn or Port next year. Most
He
likely
needs to
Port.
go.
So,
Um,
yeah, that was my 3.
what
who
was
yours?
something else I was going to say?
Oh, never
really
mind.
quickly about that. No, never mind. Let's move
Actually,
on.
no, it's my turn to just go straight to 4.
Yeah.
Nick Holas Newman was my 4.
Oh, Nick Newman. Newman.
Rolled it around all week, but I think, again, he was super important in the comeback. He had 21 pressure acts, 14 of those in the defensive half, 4 tackles, 9 marks, 13 contested possessions, and 9 intercept possessions, 31 disposals at 84 and 425 metres gained. We have said enough about Nick Newman over the last month.
Him every week for the past month. So
we both had him in our Australian teams we picked last week and said that he probably won't make it because I don't pick small defenders, but he should be in there.
No.
He should at least make the squad.
Yeah, he'll make the squad, and I think that's for a small defender these days, that's all you're getting. I picked Wiedering over Newman from that game simply because I thought his moments were a little more important.
Yep.
Newman probably had the more balanced game overall.
I think that was what made my mind the other way.
Yeah. But I can understand it, Gun. My 4 goes to Harrison Himmelberg.
He was really good. I didn't get him in.
We're doing full names this week.
Harrison Himmelberg. It's a great name, though.
It's funny. Jesus, he was good. Mm-hmm. And Jesus, GWS were good.
That was insane. Beth was getting ready while that game was on, and I kept being like, you won't believe what the score is. And there was one point I said, all right, what are the odds? Essendon kick another goal, yes or no? And she's like, yeah. I was like, no. Still 1 goal. That was insane.
Was it Glico who predicted a 26-point win to GWS? It was 100 points off?
Really funny when they predicted a 4-point win to Gold Coast. And then before the game, people were like, how? How are you doing this? Like, Carlton are going to win this easy. And then after that, people were like, oh, you've gone unders. And then at the end of the game, they're like, that was actually a really good prediction.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy game. I think that I expected GWS to win, and comfortably, but not that.
I think we all know that Harrison Himmelberg should be in the back 50/wing now. Don't put him up forward ever again. Ever.
It was another game of Zerk Thatcher, despite being a good defender, struggling when there's a really big body on him. Hogan's a big boy.
He had no support from his fellow defenders. He got monstered. And you saw it with Hawkins earlier in the year
Hogan finishing with an all-time fantasy score in some weird company up there now.
It's so funny when you open up the AFL app and it gives you like the biggest stats.
And it's just all...
It's 3 out of 4 of them are...
GWS players.
No, 4 of them are GWS players.
And
3 of them
Hogan.
are Hogan.
The other one's Tom Green.
Was it marks, score involvements and goals? He's had the most.
Yeah,
so.
and then it was disposals, Tom Green. They just, everything they could possibly do in that game, they did.
Except for get Josh Kelly to 100 fantasy points.
Except for get Josh Kelly to 100. I put the warning out, but it was too late.
I'd already got him.
I know.
Hey, I'm in the grand final and you aren't.
So I'm in the grand final of the bottom half ladder of our secondary league.
Which is so shit, right? I finished top 8 in that secondary league.
I should have.
And I'm out. But you didn't even make the top 8 and you're still going.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've won all of those finals so easily because I shouldn't be at the bottom half of that ladder. I've just had a rough year. Which means I should have been kicked out of the first 2 weeks of the actual finals, but instead I'm getting a weird golf handicap.
Yeah. Might have to get some chicken treat and conspire against Abe.
My 5 this week was to Cal Wilkie.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't get Wilkie in, but I totally get it.
Incredible. I think that regardless of the stats, which were very good, he kept Cameron goalless. And if you do that, it goes a long way to stopping Geelong. If Collingwood had managed to keep him to even 1 or 2 goals, Geelong didn't get close to them.
Yep.
He was in the right spot all game. Cameron's obviously hampered. We saw him into that shoulder again against Collingwood. He obviously pulled up sore. He's now in for surgery, basically confirmed. But
that's a Chris Scott tactic. He's
is.
Everyone's in for surgery now, so they were all injured. That's the reason.
But we saw last week how sore he looked when he landed.
He's been sore since he got fucking demolished
killed by Gary Rowan. Yeah.
He
wasn't the same footballer since he came back.
No, he did have that 6-goal game where he kicked a couple from out of bounds.
7-goal game, yeah.
Oh, 7.
It should have been a 6-goal game. But yeah, he had 2 spoils, 7 defensive half pressure acts, 14 marks and 6 rebounds. His 21 disposals came at 95%, and he had 5 score involvements, which is pretty good considering that they didn't score that much in the end. Scored a lot of points, actually.
Yeah, I think Wilkie had the biggest lull in the middle part of the season. And he's come home strong.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting with those key defenders for the All-Australian team. There's a couple that will be locks that one of them I don't think should be. I think Harris Andrews is the only lock for me.
I agree.
Darcy Moore's going to get in, but his back half of the year hasn't been good enough.
I think Wilkie should be ahead of him at the moment.
Jacob Wiedering's going to miss out because of his first half.
Yep.
Wilkie might miss out because of his middle portion.
Taylor's going to miss out because he didn't play enough games.
Exactly. So it's probably going to end up being
Moore and Harris Andrews.
And then Sicily as the third tall.
I think you make Harris Andrews captain for mine. People are saying it's Moore. I think Andrews at this rate,
I think if Moore makes the team because he's a captain, he would get
so
it
Andrews.
In. Is Andrews? How many captains they got though? They got
2.
several.
No, 2 captains.
Doesn't count.
They've got like a 12-man leadership.
Brisbane
group.
had a 5 captaincy group once upon a time. So,
Who's your 5?
My 5 is to who will actually be the All-Australian small defender, Jack Sinclair.
Totally fair. Great game. He was destructive.
Carved up Geelong. And it baffles me, and I know Close was injured and it's not really his role to do that, but why wasn't someone sitting on him at all?
Yeah.
Ever.
Crazy. I did laugh. Obviously, he got many the other way, but was it a weird, like a double... what do you call it? Reverse psychology from Ross Lyon?
That's what Ross Lyon always does. But I just don't understand how Chris Scott
hasn't done it all
that
year.
Experience.
We saw Dacos do it the week before.
Finals are on the line. Like, it's insane to me.
We saw Connor Iden do it for GWS. We saw Josh Dacos do it last week. We saw Sinclair do it this week.
Yeah.
Just not trying to curtail those outside defensive runners. Probably cost Geelong finals.
Clearly, it's not a role that Chris Scott values very much because, I mean, Geelong don't have one really, do they?
No. But Mark O'Connor could do that job. Like, he could stop that person.
He could. And it would make him maybe... Actually, you know, I can't talk shit about Mark O'Connor. He did much better than
really good.
His peers this week.
Yeah.
Buse looked 107. Tui looks like he retired
I don't think
4 months ago.
I don't think Buse was ready to come back.
Nope.
I think that was a force. They just didn't have
Well,
the
if
cattle.
Buse wasn't ready to come back, why the hell wasn't Guthrie playing?
Only played half a game, looked fine. Very strange.
Jack Sinclair was great. I've talked about Geelong instead of Jack Sinclair, but he carves it up.
He does.
What do you have, like 38 disposals or something ridiculous?
I think it was 37 or 38, yeah.
0 centre bounce attendances.
38.
I double checked.
All right.
0.
He drew a big penis in the middle of the ground.
He did.
Yep. He had, 66 in the defensive half, went at 82%, 26 of them were kicks. He had 6 intercept possessions and 11 score involvements, which is nuts.
Tom Stewart getting his centre bounce attendances this week?
No.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, pretty sure.
I'm checking.
All right.
You win this round.
Yeah. But yeah, he was very, very good. Had more inside 50s than rebound 50s, which is what tossed me the other way. But I guess when the ball was just clogged into St Kilda's front half, it was very hard for him to have rebound 50s. But yeah, no, I rate that one. Special mentions, have you got any this week?
Yeah, Harrison Andrews.
I have Andrews as my special mention.
You gave him votes, didn't you?
No.
Oh. Sorry, I remember that conversation where...
You came home and you said, was there anyone I should look at from that game? And I said, who do you reckon? You said, Andrews. I said, yeah.
I think Keaton Coleman is good too.
Kitty Coleman was good. I have already had Wiedering. Ball Ace was in there again for me. I thought he was good
I'm not sure about Ballasey. I feel like he might be a bit too slow for AFL footy.
And one I put down was Dylan Williams for Port.
He's been good all year.
Had 640 metres gained on the weekend.
That's a lot.
And Freo were okay. They just weren't quite good enough. I think it was just a difference between the two teams. They didn't get monstered in any way, but they just weren't Port good.
Zach Butters gave me a scare for my life, almost losing my fantasy game. I needed him to be... He could get up to 40 points outscore my last player, and he got to 33, I think.
He was good.
He kept getting marks and kicks in the last 2 minutes, really and I was almost crying.
The Brownlow this year is going to be fascinating as it runs home.
Yeah, you see the predictor?
Yeah, it's crazy. Bontempelli probably gets 2 votes, I think.
I think he'd get 2 at most.
Kelly gets 3 for sure. He was brilliant.
Hands down. But I think it's currently got Dacos on 30, Neil on 29, which is a smoky. They're playing St Kilda in the last round, who don't tag and don't have the midfield for it. And it has Butters and Bont on 28 or 27, who could both easily get 3 votes in the last round. Because Geelong's
midfield
tag.
is gone, and Zara Ruckman.
And I don't know who the fuck Port are playing.
Me neither.
If you had to, let's just guess. North Melbourne.
God, that'd be funny. Port are playing Richmond.
Oh,
so yes,
at Adelaide Oval,
absolutely could get the votes. I had an unspecial mention this week to Ben Mackay for having minus 2 metres gained against Richmond on the weekend,
and the worst score review touch call I've ever seen.
Not a good time for Ben Mackay. Wonder if he will be somewhere else next year.
Not pumping up his contract numbers.
Not really. He was a few weeks ago though. I feel like he's been good enough this year to justify a club wanting him.
He's a restricted free agent, right?
I don't know, actually. He would be. He'd have to be.
Yeah.
Our favourite captain, Maynard, tearing off Robinson's jumper in typical Maynard
Is
tough
it Robinson
guy stuff.
or Robertson?
Devin Robertson, sorry.
Everyone's been saying Robinson. It's been pissing me off.
Catches someone holding the ball, gets the free kick, and Maynard decides to come from nowhere and just tear someone's jumper off because that's mature.
I laughed because I was at the pub with some friends, and they said, "Are you allowed to just not have your shirt off in footy?" And I said, "No, you have to wear your jumper." He's like, "That bloke's been running around for 2 minutes without a shirt." And I turn around and he's just there, full glory.
Hulking out too. He was livid. It was really funny, BT being like, "Oh, he's loving it." And I've never seen anyone look angrier for like a 5-minute period of a game than Robertson at that point. He was clearly not happy with the treatment that he was copping in the midfield. He did, though, gain 25,000 Instagram followers, more than 9,000 overnight.
I don't think he wants them.
25,000 by the end of the weekend. And I love the commentators calling it the jump being ripped off in the Maynard tackle. Oh, that's not what happened. We and I wavered a little in our defence for St Kilda, but I still feel like we had more confidence in them than most football media around Australia.
I think we both called it a week out that this was going to be a danger game for Geelong.
I said to someone at work the other day, I said, I understand that I don't rate St Kilda very highly, but I cannot fathom how Geelong are favourites for this game. It's at St Kilda's home ground, and Geelong didn't have a ruckman against arguably the best ruck in the country.
As soon as I heard that Stanley was out, I knew that it was going to be really
strange.
tough. I want to cast our eye back. I don't know the exact date. I think it was mid-July. There was an article that went up on the AFL website that was something along the lines of the season that could have been.
The season that could have been for St Kilda, yeah.
They're sixth.
And then it was about 3 weeks later we talked about it on here because the Fox power rankings had them at like 11 and we were like, they haven't dropped out of...
They were 15th at one point on the ladder ranking.
They haven't dropped out of the top 6 all year. Well, they've dropped to 7th, I think, once.
No, they dropped to 7th at least.
Yeah.
They haven't been out of the 8.
No.
It's astonishing, and they haven't been playing great football. We pointed that out on this show before, but they've been winning the gritty ones, which is what Ross Lyon does.
Collingwood were doing that last year, and everyone was raving about them.
Style of football.
They lost to West Coast and barely beat North.
If St Kilda grinds a team down for 2 hours and it's boring to watch, no one cares. But if Collingwood win because Jamie Elliott's kicked a fucking
the most impressive game in the
800
stretch for St Kilda was the game against Brisbane, where they didn't win it, but they really prevented Brisbane from playing any kind of an attacking game.
I don't remember that game at all.
And even I remember Fagan saying he thought it was their best win for the year because they were forced to play a different way and managed to win. And St Kilda almost got across the line against a far more talented Brisbane team that have had a coach and a system for a long time. Ross Lyon's only just come into that side. The Eagles winning is the funniest possible result for so many reasons because tanking's out the window. Everyone's got to shut up about that now.
Adam Simpson... What a legend after the game. We tried to tank it for the last 3 minutes, but they wouldn't listen to me.
Very funny. Can't write nothing stories about Reid anymore because... Oh, he's gone to North, is he? Okay. No, checking his Instagram likes or whatever. Gone. So good. And then also the... they can't track pick 1. They got pick 2 now. It's just a lot.
They'll have pick 3 probably.
Probably if North get the compo for Mackay. It's just very funny. It's the best possible result. For the way I see it. And, I mean, it made the Adelaide non-goal mean more. Because if the Bulldogs won that game, it doesn't matter because the 8 would have been locked in anyway. Or Adelaide still could have made it, but the other teams couldn't have. But because the Bulldogs lost, it's also meant that Geelong, Essendon, and all the Bulldogs themselves all can't make finals now because of the Adelaide non-goal, which is insane.
Essendon can make it.
You're right, they can. But Essendon could have made it. Been an actual less than 1 in a billion chance of making it.
What are you talking about?
Had that been called a goal.
It's
had ramifications for 3 teams' finals chances.
And I feel like, obviously you just heard me watching AFL 360, Jared Waitley's a very unhappy man because Geelong can't make it.
Yeah.
But it is ridiculous that the final was in a season that promised to be as good as it was. It's just kind of fallen over the line at the end, and there's 2 games that kind of matter this weekend.
Well,
obviously, the top 4 can move around a lot, but that's not as important as just making the finals.
And had that been a goal, that's what we've been seeing huge stakes in those games.
Yep.
Geelong playing Bulldogs would be massive. Carlton GWS would be huge.
I mean, Adelaide would be locked in. I can't see with their style of play West Coast beating them. Although West Coast have been good the last few weeks.
Doesn't matter. There'd be eyes on that Adelaide West Coast game. Yeah, because they've just beaten Bulldogs and Adelaide need to win that to make finals. It'll be a huge weekend of footy coming up, and now it's a bit of a fizzle.
Yep.
And it's all because of one awful umpiring decision. And that said, I don't think Geelong or
It's not even. I think it's just a non-decision.
Yes.
And I can understand how the umpire sitting there could see it as touched because that padding moved as the ball passed by because they were
they
ramping
review
it.
so much in games that are obvious. And I'd rather they review it when it's obvious than just leave it like that. But also, how does a field umpire not call to check?
Yeah, I like the idea that was floated where I don't like the idea of every behind being reviewed and having to recall it because one, that would be annoying. Two, it would suck for people working champion data because they would have to dump so much stuff.
It would get recalled very rarely though.
Yes, but I like the idea that they just review everything in like the last 5 minutes of a game, down to calling it back. To fuck the other part of the game. If it fucks up there, it doesn't matter.
Time on reviews.
But like just in the last 5 minutes, call it back if you have to.
It just sucks that, and like I said, by no means do I think Geelong or Essendon deserve to make finals this year. I think they've had, especially this weekend, they did not play well, and Bulldogs as well. But it's still rubbish that in a year like this year that they can't make finals.
Yeah.
Especially having both beaten Essendon, Geelong, and all three of them beaten teams that are going to make finals this year and had comfortable wins against those teams. So it's frustrating for so many supporters now. Obviously, mostly Adelaide ones. For the first time, really can be right in front of me. We were robbed.
The boos at the end of that game were immense.
Yes,
it was. And Ben Key's face, man, I keep thinking about him. He was yelling and screaming for like the game was played for 70 seconds and he's still chatting away trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's Rankin who's punching the floor.
I had an interesting one the other day.
Did you?
So I during the Brisbane Collingwood game just made a post about how it's weird that Maynard is exempt from dissent.
Oh yeah, he is.
Because it's 2 weeks in a row, a very similar spot. Opposition player's been lining up for a goal and he's just been going at the umpire, and the umpire just kind of calmly talks him down. And someone said to me on Twitter, I didn't tag anyone, I just posted it. Someone said, captains are allowed to question the umpire's decisions, and I said, please point me to the part of the rule book where it says that captains are, immune to the dissent rule.
And why is Pendlebury allowed to do it?
Well, and also Maynard wasn't captain last week against Geelong.
No.
And he sent me a screenshot from a Wikipedia article that appeared to be like local footy rules. And I was like, are you a stoned high school student? Like, Wikipedia's not a source. And I just went to the rule book and screenshot and it was like, any player or official cannot question the umpire's decision. Like, that's the rule.
Oh, imagine high school Jack hearing Wikipedia is not a source.
I didn't give sources, let alone Wikipedia. But also, if you want to use Wikipedia as a source, just click the source it gives and go... Anyway.
Copy-paste it there. And
I was like, my man... You got Wikipedia that? Okay. But yeah, apparently according to No Face Name Numbers on Twitter, captains are immune. So that's why Maynard was allowed to do it this week.
I genuinely think they should crack down. It's too late now. Don't do it in finals. That's ridiculous. But I genuinely think if they want dissent to be... If they want no dissent in all levels of AFL football, stuff like that needs to crack down.
Absolutely.
I don't like it when Pendlebury questions the umpire, but that's
different.
Much
that's a discussion.
Better than someone like Maynard having a tantrum or Jake Lever jumping up and down and throwing the ball. Stuff like that should be called as it is.
But then Wilkie and...
pointing at the screen
Wilkie
is
and
not
Cogs
dissent.
point at the screen and they get dissent. It's such an inconsistent rule.
If Pendlebury can walk up to someone and say, why was that a free kick? And Wilkie goes, if you have a look up there, you'll see that I got my hand on that first. That's not dissent. That's just...
It was really funny watching...
it pisses me off.
The World Cup and just seeing those players just go at umpires. That was the best one, yeah.
This is not a visual podcast, but I did the the dissent face.
It was so good. Ellie Carpenter's reaction was golden, but also just players just going at umpires. So funny. Like, I can't even imagine, other than maybe Maynard doing it at AFL level, anyone getting away with that, like anything close to that.
I'm sure there's someone off the top of my head I can think of that gets away with it.
Ablett Jr. would have got away with it.
He was a pet. He was definitely a pet. I reckon even Chris Judd might have got away with it too.
But yeah, it's that's all over. Footy's...
I reckon Cochin would go away with it too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Umpires love Cochin.
They did. They really loved Cochin.
Rewalt throws the Tansy too.
Yeah. He was remarkably subdued this year since the December. He and Hawkins are the ones that shocked me. I was For sure, Rewalt and Hawkins were going to be the worst for it, and they both just went.
I had it in my brain that Geelong lose a prelim final because Hawkins gave away a descent free kick.
Absolutely could imagine it.
But
I saw everyone's favourite Gerard Healy impersonator, Sav Mega fan, posted the other day. It was a picture of Hawkins elbowing Schofield in the back of the head.
Yeah.
No, are we ready to admit this cost us the grand final? And I was like, have we not been doing
Always
that
been
this
admitting
whole
it.
time?
Not to go on about our teams, but how's good Nick Newman getting the 100-metre penalty for just running into a player?
He is a pest of a man. I do think, though, that during that game, Gold Coast were pretty undisciplined, and it did cost them.
Well, that's why you got to get a taskmaster like Dimmer.
Oh, Dimmer definitely increased the amount of on-field discipline from a football team, doesn't he? That's why Richmond had the most frees against for 150-metre penalties through the roof.
I just laugh mostly because
Maybe they're getting ready for it.
Dimmer's going to lose his MCG games. They play most of their Melbourne games at Marvel.
He hates Marvel.
He hates Marvel.
Richmond haven't won there since he said he hates Marvel.
Well, I wonder if he's going to change his tune.
He loves Marvel now.
He loves Marvel.
He'll say it. He'll get there.
He'll be like, there's too much sun on the Gold Coast. I like getting under the roof.
He looks so unnatural in red.
He looks healthier. Maybe it's the 3 months off.
Yeah, I think so. He's been out in LA trying every strain on the West Coast. And
he said they had some high-performance meetings overseas, but I think that just means he was on weed.
He was
I think
high,
he was fucking
and they
high
were
as
performance
shit.
meetings. I was talking to someone at work today, and I was like, I find it really funny that Gold Coast couldn't wait the 2 weeks for him to come back to Australia to interview him. That they were like, we've got to do a fully business-paid trip to the Amalfi Coast to chat to Dimmer. We can't wait for him to get back.
Their CEO in Sydney said, I really got to get out to...
Where
was he?
I think he was in Italy at the time.
Yes.
Got to fly to Italy to have a meeting with Dimmer. We can't wait for him to come back in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, well,
I did appreciate the timing of waiting until after this Richmond game so that Dimmer could be around those players that he was with for most of their careers that day, so that it wasn't overclouded by that. Didn't stop Richmond fans from being very upset about him being there because he's a traitor and a cutthroat. But
yeah, I don't know how they let him in the rooms. Do you reckon it's going to be an awkward 20-year reunion for the Port Premiership team next year with Dew and Hardwick there?
maybe they talked about that. Did you hear that earlier being talked about?
Nah, they just said, have you talked to him?
Oh, okay.
And he hasn't.
Oh, I think Stuart Dew's just a pretty chill bloke. I think he will be normal about it. And also Dimmer, by all means, outside of a football field, seems like a pretty chill bloke. So I don't know if there'll be any problem. I think they're too mature for that, but we'll see.
Funny.
I mean, I'd be more worried about seeing the Carr brothers in person. No, I was looking at the droughts again today in footy.
Oh, yeah. The Premiership droughts.
It is crazy that, you know, between 2005 when Sydney broke theirs, we've seen so many of them broken now, to the extent that even if you count Freos, which I don't because it can't be a drought if it's never rained, that's just a desert.
How long are you thinking that one up?
A while. But even if you count Freos, which is now at about 30 years, or 29, St Kilda's is so long now. It's almost been as long since they won one as between them starting in their first one. The worst ever, I think, was still the Bulldogs. They had the longest drought. And Sydney as well were pretty bad. But
I think that's part of the reason they pulled the trigger on Ross Lyon coming back is because they saw what happened to the Bulldogs just winning that premiership. The Bulldogs became, like, not that they weren't already a household name because all the teams are, but like they are always Friday night
respected
game.
as a football team.
They are always highly watched. They're talked about. St Kilda don't get that. They have players like Jack Sinclair and Jack Steele. They have Max King up forward.
We've been raving about their players all year. Their depth this year proves that it was
just
great.
Windiger and Wangan Miller alone should be household names, but they're not yet.
And I've always loved Tim Membry. I've
I've always hated Tim Membry.
I've often said I loved Tim Membry more when he was shit. Like he was one of those players that I found it endearing that he had all of these amazing footballing traits and just couldn't use them properly. And now that he's put it together, it's less fun.
It's good to watch though, just not against my team. Thank you.
He and King together is a much better lineup for them. And Mace Wood's become a good footballer for them, and that seems to be not talked about as much as it should be outside of people who do football stuff for a living.
He plays wing.
Yeah, wingmen are really ignored.
There's only 3 good wingmen this year, apparently, according to the AFL. So
Wood's been as important to St Kilda's structure as many other players who are.
It's by far the most underrated position. And I know we're a defenders podcast, so that's awkward of us to say, but How important has Blake Acres been to Carlton?
Oh,
How important
massive.
has Mason Wood been to St Kilda? Josh Dacos is having a great season again. Obviously, Errol Goulden should be All-Australian. Fucking Nick Martin should be All-Australian
absolutely.
but won't be. Those players run and run and run and run, and they just don't get the credit that they deserve. So it's really annoying.
Yeah, recently it came up when Shuey retired. People were talking about the unluckiest non-All-Australian players, and in the discussion, as always, was Mitch Duncan, because he played wing during that era, despite the fact that he was one of the best wings going around, if not the best, many years in a row. But yeah, they don't have the respect.
That's why they moved him to half-back to try and get him in Australia.
Yeah, this year they tried to make him an inside mid for some games. But yeah, it's been a year, and the excitement is a little bit gone now that the finals is mostly locked in. It's still an exciting final series.
It feels a bit flat. The finals look good.
But now that's 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
And this week's like, okay, we'll just get through
3
this.
weeks away.
Yeah, you're right. It just feels like we'll get through this week. We'll move on.
Well, I'm annoyed because the only 2 games that really matter are Saturday night and Sunday night.
That's also true.
Yeah. I mean, I got Monday off, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But...
I've got Monday off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We can do
And then I'm
nothing.
flying to Adelaide on Tuesday.
What a wild fucking week this is going to be.
Yeah, Greg's going to be so confused.
I think Seb's going to be confused. The podcast is fucking 5 days early.
Oh, yeah, I'm wondering if I'm going to upload it tomorrow or the day after. See how I feel tonight about whether I want to edit it or not. Could just go on Wednesday like normal. I was thinking that. I was like, have we ever... Also that we did it late last week.
Mm-hmm.
A Friday release.
I think, what is this, like 3 days in between
Not
recording?
many, is it? Yeah, so maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it on Wednesday instead, Tuesday night. But yeah, one more week of votes at least for the back pocket this year.
Yeah, I'm not going to look at the numbers. You probably already have them.
Oh,
there,
no,
but
I didn't want to look at them either. I want to kind of leave it as fun for next week.
I think it'll be tight because...
We got no votes for Andrews this week. Wilkie
Yeah.
got votes. Newman got a little bit of votes. So that means that top is still very tight.
Yeah.
No one ran away with it. So really, if a 10 next week from anyone in the top 4 wins them the medal, basically. Unless Andrews gets 8 kind of thing.
Yeah. I think, yeah, all the way down to Newman. And I don't even know what Sinclair was on. So,
He was close-ish, yes.
Yeah.
And Brisbane have St Kilda, I think. So that's a huge game for the medal. Yeah. And you'd think if St Kilda win that game, Wilkie or Sinclair will probably have a pretty big hand in it.
if St Kilda win that game, something crazy's
If
happened.
St Kilda win that game, then their premiership odds should halve.
And I think Brisbane should double.
Yeah.
Because they are setting themselves up
yeah,
for a top 2 spot. And if
Brisbane-
they drop that, they're out. They're
Brisbane, for me, this week, pretty much firmed as
The favourite.
favourites.
Yep, I agree.
I still have Collingwood second because they will get a lot of their injured players back before finals, and they've got a bit of a chance now to kind of recoup and recover. They've had top spot locked in, and we've seen with teams in the past that it's hard to maintain the rage when you know you've got a home final coming up. Like a lot of teams, we saw Melbourne lose that game to Adelaide 2 years in 2021. When Adelaide were second last. I remember
Oh, shit, yeah, I remember that year.
Collingwood dropping a game, and obviously they lost to Geelong in the grand final, but they dropped the game to Geelong late in that year because everyone was like, it didn't matter to Collingwood. That game was a totally different thing. Geelong losing to Port in 2007 when they had top spots sewn up. Like, we see it happen so often. So I think
I always just think of sides that...
there's an over-panic around Collingwood, especially among some Collingwood fans. And I get it. They've had this before so many times where they've made top 4 or grand
they're
finals. and
right to
lost.
panic in a little way because you look at sides like Geelong last year who were on the roll and it just kept going, which is the reason why, even if they have to rest players, I do not want Carlton to lose this week because if they're 10 wins going into finals...
And there are stats around, and Collingwood's is bad because they've now lost 3 of the last
3 or
4.
4.
And then the one that they won was barely against a team that is struggling. There are some stats around the last month going in.
Yeah.
And if you lose more than one game, then you pretty much don't win a flag.
Yeah.
So I'd be worried about that. But the problem with that, the other side of that is that Port's in that boat too. And Melbourne have been very close to also joining them in that boat. So
Yeah, I think Port have the problem with their midfield so good, but their bookends aren't.
Yes.
Whereas I think a lot of the other teams in the top 4, especially, have their bookends sorted.
yeah, Port losing the home final for Port has been the worst thing that's happened to their season. I think that they're very likely now to play Brisbane in the first week, which is the matchup no one wants. Collingwood Melbourne, if that becomes the first final, is awesome. Like that's what I think we all want to see as the first week. But Port copping Brisbane in Brisbane's rough for them. They'll cop a pretty good... The bottom 4 of the finals are coming in pretty good form.
It will be very...
So they'll cop a good form team the week after if they lose that. And then if they manage to win that one, then they play one of Collingwood or Melbourne at the MCG. So it's a hard run.
It's an interesting one because if Collingwood play Melbourne, there's a very good chance that one side of the table might not have to leave Melbourne.
Yes.
Depending on Carlton, St Kilda. Obviously, GWS
Yeah.
and Sydney would not want to be in Melbourne, but...
And Brisbane, the problem with Brisbane is that we know what their MCG record is, and there's obviously a bit of fear there. We saw that game that they choked earlier this year against Hawthorn and against Melbourne. So
that's why I think if they get top 2, they're set, because whoever they play at the MCG, if it's Collingwood, they've won 6 in a row against them. Just beat them at Marvel. They'll be very confident. Melbourne's the difficult one for them. I think Brisbane at the MCG...
They would have memories of this year.
Very, very easily do over St Kilda, Carlton, GWS and Sydney. I wouldn't be worried about that. But top 4 wise, I would be most worried about playing Melbourne at the MCG.
This is their year, I think, now. The way it's fallen, this has to be the year that they do it. They feel very much like early noughties Port, when Brisbane were the dominant team. When Port, I think they won.
Do it.
They finished top 5 3 years in a row, Port. And the third year was the one they finally won the flag. That's what Brisbane's felt like for the last 4 or 5 years.
Especially because they've got their defensive structure right this year.
Last year was realistically their best effort. I know they got pumped by Geelong, but I think anyone would have that week. But the fact they beat Melbourne in a final at the MCG, didn't go out in straight sets like they had been previously, showed a lot of fight for them. I despite there's a few Brisbane players that I think are wankers, I have always had a bit of a soft spot for Brisbane because they were so exciting to watch growing up.
They're in the list of ones I'm fine with.
I'd have no problem with them winning it.
That's probably a ranking we should have brought in, but I think their forward line is too good.
It's insane.
Now that their defensive structure is good, all of their forwards are capable of kicking 2 or 3 goals each in a final, which is huge because that's something that teams struggle with. Like, how many small forwards going into final series underperform?
Yeah.
Like Eddie Betts, one of the best small forwards of all time, but he barely 5 shots.
For Melbourne.
Yep. But I have
Cody Waitman.
I have a bit of confidence in the fact that if Cameron doesn't fire, Zach Bailey's going to pop up for 3, or McCarthy, or even Archie.
Yeah, he's been really good this last month. He's found some serious form.
So yeah, that's us. I think I said at the start of the year Brisbane was my choice.
Yep.
So let's see.
Yeah,
I was jumped off and pretty quick.
Yeah. I also, I wasn't on them because I didn't have faith in them, but I think they've played a much more consistent brand of football this year.
Ever since everyone came for Danaher and Hipwood,
they've
turned themselves around.
Like Hipwood's been passable, which is all he's ever needed to be with Danaher in the side.
They're going to kick 100 goals between them, so that's all that for 2 key forwards. That's what you want.
Absolutely.
I know we're inflated by an extra game this season, but
still, they've been really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, their defensive side of their game has settled me. I think that the way they've proven that if they can't get their attack going, they can still knuckle down. Jack Payne's been huge for that. The rise of Ryan Lester has been huge for that. Archie as well.
Rich with Coleman.
Coleman, when he's fit, has been incredible for them. So I think it'd be good to see. They've just got so much talent in that team that that'd be so exciting to see them win it. And I think that they would take a lot of confidence out of winning it. Like, I think if they go out in straight sets again this year, you wonder what it would do to the psyche of a lot of players at that club with the way their last 5 years have gone. But if they win it this year, it's almost a danger for everyone else in the competition because the mental part of it would be gone for them. So, but yeah, that's a longish one actually this week. So
yeah, it's
what happens if we record on a Monday.
If we have a Brisbane fan listening, they're going to have a good time at the end of this podcast.
Go off, Brisbane fans. I actually don't know any.
I don't think I know any either.
Which is crazy considering when we grew up. Like, if you're going to bandwagon a team...
maybe it's the WA factor.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who are interstate teams that aren't Melbourne.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't know.
The only Sydney fans I know are people from Sydney. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. We will see you again next week. This has been The Back Pocket.
Bye.